Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining Darien Library this evening for Downsizing Step-by-Step with Matt Baier. Now, Matt is the owner of Matt Baier Organizing, LLC, which serves Fairfield County and Westchester County. He developed his interest in organizing out of all places, the Jim Henson Company, home of the Muppets. He was promoted from art director to a department head, and he had to work in a smaller area. And to succeed, he turned and relied on his natural skill of organizing. In 2004, he swapped careers to professional organizing and created his business and specializes in team clutter relief with his team of organizers. He also is a best-selling organizer book that's called Circulation Solution. And so tonight is part of our Begin with the End in Mind series. We meet the first Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. and we discuss topics that, are not always the most comfortable. Nobody likes talking about the end, but, we talk about things that are heavy and topics that are light, like downsizing. So I'm excited for everyone to join us tonight. Before I begin, I'd like to mention that programs at the Darien Library are made possible by the annual Friends of the Library campaign. We thank you for your support to make programs like this, as well as our collection, available to the community. And now I'll pass the mic over to Matt. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, Samantha. Thank you to the Darien Library for having me. Okay. So moving is considered the number 3 most stressful life event. Behind death of a loved one and divorce. It's more stressful than major illness or injury and job loss. When you compound moving with moving to a smaller location or downsizing, it can be even more stressful because it can be seen as the death of a life you have come to know and love. Wondering what I'm doing. I'm just my timer. By the way, if you don't know about this great organizing tool, time timer, you can see exactly what 50 minutes looks like. I'm going to leave some time for questions. Okay. So my function here tonight is not to convince anyone that downsizing means a new, better beginning, although it certainly can. But I want to share a step-by-step strategy to make the process of downsizing as painless as possible. My team of professional organizers have been helping folks in Fairfield County get through downsizing for the last 17 years, and I'm happy to share all our secrets for downsizing with you tonight. So I'll get right to it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat, and I will leave some time at the end for those. Okay. Step 1, know your options for excess. A dumpster alone won't cut it because discarding low value items is not enough. You're letting go of the items that no longer serve you well in your new home, and that can include some really nice items. So let's start with the sell options. First, of course, there's the traditional estate sale. This works particularly well if you have a lot of high-end items and you are okay with people coming into your home to shop around. There are many estate sale companies, and they all seem to be very busy these days. Next, there's the traditional auction house. If there are a few pieces of furniture and decorative items you want to sell, the auction house can take them away on consignment. You get paid when the item sells. For this, nearby favorite is Greenwich Auction. Another example that tends to take higher end items is Doyle Galleries. Next, online auction and estate sales represent a growing trend. Max Sold is a franchise that specializes in online auctions. They can sell everything from antiques to lots of household cleaners. They send specialists to photograph and catalog items individually or by lots, then post those items over a 2-week auction. Then they send representatives back to your home to distribute these items, the sold items, to on a predetermined morning, and the buyers show up and take their items away. They come inside just long enough to take their items, but they're not walking around your home shopping around. Max Sold reps are there to supervise the transactions. BlackRock Galleries, you may have heard of, and their junior company Clearing House Estate Sales use a similar model, but they're more local. I'm sorry, was there a question? I thought I heard something. Okay. If you're considering a yard sale or a tag sale, wondering about this option, my question would be, do you need the added stress? Don't get me wrong, if you like spending a weekend socializing with folks outdoors, and you do have a lot of good stuff that can make some money, it can be a good experience. But here's what doesn't make sense. Attempting to clean out a lot of low value items to people who will bargain you down from a quarter to a dime, pulling all the stuff out onto your lawn, pricing it, and then dragging it back in what doesn't sell. Also, you have to have the time just right for a nice weekend, advertise it so people will come, and have plenty of parking. Also, if you're looking to get help with all this work, I'm no longer aware of any businesses that find yard sales worthwhile to run. It can work if you know what you're doing, but if this is your first time with with a tag sale, I don't recommend it. Personal online sales option. For items that you don't want to donate and don't want to sell in an auction, you can try selling items online yourself. I know Craigslist gets a bad rap, but I've had success with it. People respond same day, show up, pay what I want. Most people these days seem to be using Facebook Marketplace more. In both cases, you need to take a good photo of your item, write a good description, and price reasonably. You're also at the mercy of the buyer. You can't appeal to Amazon or anyone else when the buyer doesn't show up. It's a good idea to have somebody else at your home when they come, just to be safe. Facebook Marketplace also gives you the option of mailing smaller items. Okay, for donation, discard, and shredding options. A lot of items are, of course, will just not be worth all the effort to sell. Those can be donated and discarded. By the way, another option besides donating is I'm sorry, my screen is frozen. It's doing that. I don't know why, but hopefully you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Let's see, I'm just gonna back. All right. See if I'm just gonna, I know it's a little disconcerting to see that. All right. All right, I'm not gonna be distracted by it.
That's okay.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's see. So give to is as an option. What this is, if you've got somebody specific in mind instead of a general donation, you could set aside items for specific people, but keep it separate from donations so it doesn't get swept away. Okay, so my favorite of the donations services are Vietnam Vets of America. Sorry, I just want to get that back. They will take smaller items that one person can carry. Habitat for Humanity will take furniture, appliances, and building material. Both services are free, but expect to wait a week or two. It helps if you can send them a photo of your donations. You may need to be available to wait a full day when they're scheduled, but you can get a receipt for donations from them. If you want the convenience of a one-stop shop for discards and donates that comes whenever you want, I recommend the junk luggers. They are, of course, a paid service, but convenience costs. There are different hauling companies available, and business is booming for them too. Yes, you can always have the dumpster option for you to fill up, but bear in mind that the labor of hauling services offers you for heavier discards. You can hire labor from a company like the junk luggers separately if you've gotten a dumpster for, if you, like, for example, to show they're moving a fridge here, they're moving a sofa. If you don't want to have to leave to lift that, you can hire these guys separately from their truck. If you have a lot of paper to shred, I recommend Shred Station Express. They pick up a minimum of 4 banker boxes. If you want the shredding to be done on site, then I recommend a company called On-Site Shredding out of Stamford. Okay, so that's just step 1, but don't worry, the rest of these are not going to be this big. And this step was just know your options, and now you know. So you can check that, check off step 1. All right, step 2, know your limits. If you're looking for a new space that is half the size of your current home, then figure on keeping about half your possessions to live comfortably. If you know where you're going and you can get a floor plan like the one you're seeing here, then by all means do. Here's how it's useful. Let's say the new home doesn't have a dining space in the kitchen like you have now. By seeing the dimensions of your smaller dining space, you can see whether maybe it makes sense to bring your kitchen table and sell your dining table. You can measure it and you can know. You don't have to guess. Another limitation to know about is what categories to focus on. In most cases, the top priority is getting your home photo ready, like this beautiful kitchen here. So you don't have to make the ultimate purge. That is to say, you don't have to think about getting rid of everything in this first stage. Start with the larger items and the quick wins that will make the most difference visually. Don't begin by fussing over the small things. I will take you through the house in order to show you what I mean by this. Most likely, you will need to work in 2 stages. So that's another limitation. Stage 1 is declutter to make photo ready for sale, like this kitchen, so you can have the result of this home for sale. Then once it's sold, stage 2 is to sell the furniture and other items to move. You'll keep a lot of furniture in the house because they typically don't want to show a house that is an empty shell. You want to see some furniture, just not an excess. So there will be a full sale after sale of the items in your home after the sale of the house itself. And by the way, I should mention that I know every downsizing situation is a little bit different. You may have a second property and you might not need to be in it, might not need to live in your home while you're downsizing. Maybe the home sold without having to show it. All kinds of different circumstances. I'm going on the assumption that you need to prepare the house to show, then sell it, and then empty it. Finally, consider the good limitations of your new home. For example, Will there be a limitation on yard work because the condo you're moving into has a landscaper? If so, then perhaps now you can sell your garden tools and you can save on that moving and storage cost. Here's an example of, oh yeah, I don't think I meant to mention. Moving in stages may mean that you need to get a storage unit or a pod. That's kind of a last resort. And you'll see how you can avoid it based on the steps we're going to go through here. But if you do get a storage unit or a pod, use them in a way that makes your next steps easier. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is sort like categories and label them well before you hide them away for weeks or even months. The idea is to make them as easy as possible to empty. And it's a lot easier to do when you have your like categories together. It's all sorted. It's not just thrown in there in a mess. Then it becomes something you dread returning to, and you don't want to have to keep paying storage any longer than necessary. Step 3, coordinate on strategy. It's a good idea to get on the same page with your spouse, realtor, about when and how everything is happening from the beginning. Establish a processing area. Wherever you are reviewing your possessions in your home, establish a clear processing area. The processing area needs to shift as you move throughout the house, but the strategy for processing should be consistent. Clearly separate items to review from items to keep, discard, donate, sell, and give to with a processing table. I call it the decision table. You can see it here. It's got my team working on a decision table, client sitting down there. And it's a way of sort of separating the undecided, which we have here on the left. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but where this lamp is, this pile here is the items to review. And then on this side are the decided items. You're clear on what you're going to keep, discard, donate, etc. It could be a folding table in the garage, or it could be a dining table on the first floor. Your editing strategy should focus on keeping, not tossing. Address priorities more openly without the stress of loss by focusing on what you are keeping and why. So this is really important. There's often a pressure to get rid of things. And it can be, intensified with family members, Ma, throw that stuff out. Why are you keeping this? It's more important to actually think about why you're keeping things. Whenever you find yourself asking why you're keeping it, where things are going, you should ask why you're keeping them. Because you're keeping the same items for several different reasons. Example I love to share is books. When you see a lot of books like that, you think, oh gosh, how is that going to fit in a downsized home? Well, the trick is not to think of these as one entity, as books. Think about why you're keeping them. If you're keeping books you want to make a point of reading, they should go to a reading area. Maybe it's bedside, maybe it's coffee table. Books for reference, that should go in a home office where you can access them quickly. You might be keeping books purely for sentimental reasons. And that's okay, but perhaps those can be stored more remotely. Perhaps there are books books for looks. You want them seen. They should go in a prominent area. Maybe it's a coffee table. Maybe there's an entryway. You might be keeping books because you want to sell them someday. They're of value. If that's the case, what do they always say on the Antiques Roadshow? It's all about condition. So if you want to keep them in good condition, keep them out of the light. when you're clear on all these reasons why you're keeping, one, it takes them to items to where they should go, and it's easier to imagine where they're going to go in your new, smaller home. But also, you start to realize, okay, you know what? I'm not sure why I am keeping this book. It was a good book, but I'm not going to read it again. Maybe I can donate it and sell it. It becomes a lot easier when you've looked at all the reasons why you're keeping to finally say, all right, this can go. So open up the progress by opening up options: donation, sell, give to family, to family and friends, and storage. Next, make your process regret-free. Now, obviously, we don't want the scenario in this photo here. What this is about is if you find yourself saying, I should probably get rid of this, but I just don't know if I'm ready. And Amanda, I think this is kind of what you were, I'm kind of alluding to what you were saying before about sentimental items here. It's better, when in doubt, I'm actually going to say, when in doubt, don't throw it out. The reason for that is because nothing will sabotage your decluttering process faster than regret. There will be plenty of lower value items you can part with, so just keep getting back to reviewing those. All you need to do with the items you're unsure about is identify why you're keeping them. Are you keeping items for sentimental reasons? That's fine. Put them with keepsakes. Is it potentially a decorative item? Fine. It goes with the decor. Keep it with the appropriate category. That way, you will still move the process forward for the next time you revisit those items, but you can keep the momentum going on the decisions that are easier to make.
Thank you. I needed to hear that.
Good. There's more of that. Step 4, start with the garage. Now, your realtor will almost certainly want you to focus on the living areas to get them photo ready. And that is indeed part of the point. To get to sell your home, you do need these to have good photos of your living areas. However, they may say the garage doesn't matter, but here's the thing. The excess stuff has to go somewhere, and it's not all going to go in the dumpster. It just isn't. There will be some things that you would feel better about donating. Some things you will want to get to specific people. And of course, some things you will want to sell. The garage tends to be filled with quick wins. And what I mean by that is things you're definitely keeping or you're definitely getting rid of. You're moving. Push has come to shove. As you rethink your possessions, create clear zones in your garage, exit zones. One for discards, another for donates, on the opposite, and keep them on the opposite wall so those mistakes don't happen. Maybe reserve a back corner for give to items for friends, family members you have specifically in mind. And now the keep items that you might be keeping in the garage are keep to move items. They're not, because nothing's staying. So you're rethinking the things you're keeping there. They're keep to move. Make your garage 100% exit zones so that those items that are taken away from your garage leave it 100% empty. By the way, okay, before this is the idea. You have a separate zone for discard, donate, and separate for sell. Start looking for hazardous recycling days, or not just recycling, disposal days ASAP. It usually comes to your neighborhood once a year, so don't miss it. Might be the last thing you think of. It should be the first thing. Step 5, declutter the basement. Like the garage, the basement should have some pretty quick wins, and the emptied space has a new function: collect items to sell. I showed you the discard, donate, and sell just to sort of show you the idea of separate zones, but really it's best to have sell items in the basement rather than the garage. Tends to be a little bit more climate controlled. And what I'm talking about are mostly like smaller items, but certainly smaller pieces of furniture. And obviously you're not going to move a piano you want to sell upstairs down to the basement, but it's good to have the sell items all collected in one place. As you extract items to sell throughout your house, collect them in your basement so that you make your next steps easier, whatever path you choose. You may also want to hold items to move in the basement. That is, items that are keeping, but you're now saying, all right, these are ready to move. But box those up neatly, and it will appear to the potential buyer like you have more storage space. Look at larger items like furniture first, then move on to medium-sized items, and save the paper for last. More on that later. Step 6, declutter the attic. Empty the attic through the garage as well. Store keep to move items there that are sentimental and decorative items that you're not ready to relinquish, but won't show well in the home that you're trying to sell. So for example, there may be certain pieces of furniture or decorative items or framed photos that realtors won't want to see in your home because it won't show well, but you want to keep them nonetheless. So attic's a great place to hold them. You just would want to caution if it's super hot and the photos are going to be there a while, then maybe keep them in the basement. But most decorative items, even especially if it's like sort of specific, not generic, best to hide in the attic rather than in the living spaces that you're trying to feature in your home. Step 7. Now you can move on to the living spaces that you've decluttered the storage spaces. Now you can start making your realtor happy as you and process for decluttering your kitchen, your living room, bedroom, bathrooms, etc. And this will go much faster. Why? Because now all this stuff has a place to go. And it can look like this. This is the type of photos you want to have when you're trying to sell your home. Clear floors, clear surfaces, everything looks even and consistent. That's the type of photos that make a home photo ready. Not this. So it's going to be easier to declare faster now because you have created the spaces for all the excess items to go. For example, you can empty the kitchen cabinets of maybe extra pots and pans that you won't need in your new home, move them to the donation zone in the garage, then use the empty cabinet for handy items that might be on the counter. Photos of kitchens with clear counters make homes much more sellable. Here's the keepsakes, Amanda. Step 8, consolidate keepsakes. Often I see folks struggling with their sentimental keepers because they feel like it's the type of thing they should be unloading. I wouldn't recommend that. Start with the lower value replaceable stuff first. Save the keepsakes almost for the end if possible, and try to look at them together as much as possible. Context drives decisions. Focus on getting rid of obvious duplicates where you can, and work toward consolidating your keepsakes so they are hopefully fewer, but also all together. I would save detailed photo and keepsakes organizing projects for your new home. This will be much easier as a result of the consolidating efforts you're doing here. By the way, here's a tip for consolidating keepsake papers. And we're assuming you're bringing in papers from throughout the house, and look at them all together. Tip your box sideways. Let's say you're collecting all of your papers, consolidating them into a banker's box. When you tip the box sideways, you can place the papers in flat and fill it all the way to the top without worrying about the papers tipping over if you're putting them in vertically. You could fill up boxes more completely that way.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Simple thing makes a big difference. Step 9. Save home office and paper that goes with it and from the rest of the house for last. With any organizing project, I always recommend reviewing paper last, and downsizing is no exception. Why do paper last? Paper requires a lot of surface area to process and a lot of focus. Both are hard to maintain when you have a lot of other stuff piled up all around you. And this is often the place I see people starting with, and I think it's because, oh, well, I should at least get rid of the paper. I'll start there. No, start with the bigger stuff. Start with the garage. Save the paper for the end if you can.
I also think it's exhausting, and then you kind of lose steam because of that. So that's a great tip.
Yeah, well, I'm going to show you exactly how to go through it as painlessly as possible. Paper is painful. So a big part of our work is looking for the toughest parts of what you're struggling with, our clients tend to struggle with, and looking for ways to make them as easy and manageable as possible. It makes no sense to organize a new filing system when you are downsizing, but here's what does make sense. Break your paper into just 4 simple stages, not categories, stages. I call them running, sitting, sleeping, whoops, and I'm going the wrong direction, and dead. So running files are the files you want to make a point of acting on. These are your bills to pay, your ongoing projects. Sitting files are files you simply need to be able to find reliably. Current year information, statements, and vital records. A sleeping file is perhaps the most important stage to recognize because you are keeping them just in case. They relieve you of making the perfect keep or toss decision. The advantage of identifying them is that you know that you can store them more remotely, wherever that will be when you move. So it could, if it has to be an outside storage facility, these are files that you know you can do without for a while. Maybe you've got some basement space in your new place, attic space. The point is, these are files that you could say, all right, these can be more remote. Dead files are the ones that have lost all value. Tax supporting material outside the audit zone, old purchases, financial and medical statements. Now they can be recycled and shredded and save you space in your new home. No need to move those. No need to pay to move dead files. Save the more granular file organizing for when you move into your new home. Now is not the time. Now just sort by stage. So step 10 is get help. This perhaps could have been step 1, but I think now it may be more time. It might be a better time to fully appreciate why you would need some help. If these simplified steps still sound like a lot of work, of course, we'd be happy to offer a free consultation to explain how we can make it happen fast and painlessly. But you don't have to use us. You can always get help from family and friends, but I strongly recommend that you share these tips. If you don't like your pushy adult children taking control, explain to them how it's going to go and why. If it makes sense to them, and why wouldn't it, you can tell them you would love their help. The biggest reason I have seen adult children boss their parents around is that they are fed up with their parents' indecision with the clock ticking. My favorite definition of clutter comes from professional organizing pioneer Barbara Hemphill, who called all clutter postponed decisions. It's the perfect definition when you think about it, because it's not junk. You might think it's junk, but it's not. It's postponed decisions. It's leave it there for now. I'll get to it later. Just stick it in the garage. Our biggest value is helping folks make decisions. And all these steps are designed to make your decisions as easy as possible. So let's review. Number 1, know your options. You don't have to wonder who's taking your excess and how. Now you know. Step 2, your decisions will be guided by your limits. Step 3, your helpers will understand your strategy. Do one room at a time. Keep the review zone separate from the decisions. Sort 100%. Focus on what you are keeping and why and how much and where it's going to go. Then you won't be focusing on tossing. And remember to use the regret-free process. Step 4, start in the garage and leave only exit zones. Step 5, declutter the basement and establish a cell zone and storage space. Step 6, declutter the attic and hold only items to pack but not show. Step 7, declutter living spaces to make them photo ready. Step 8, consolidate keepsakes, but don't make the hastiest decisions with the least replaceable items. Step 9, do the home office last because paper requires the most focus. Step 10, get help. Here's a whole page of resources, all the ones that I mentioned. I also gave Amanda a PDF and a Word file that she'll be making available, which will that you can get all these from. There are links that you just click on and go straight to the website, get their contact information. Looks like I finished before I planned, but I can stop sharing and take some questions now. I'm going to try see if I can get animated here.
Perfect. Wonderful. Oh my goodness. I feel just so much more relief just listening to what you just said. So I hope everyone else feels that same way. And there are a lot of things I'm like, what did I think of that? But
It is
brilliant.
manageable if you do it in, steps that make sense, and don't put too much pressure
Mhm.
on the tough decisions. That's
Yeah, I
really
think
the
that's
key.
where you put this reasonable pressure on yourself when you're doing things like this.
Yeah. Let's see. All
So
right.
someone just said, let's see here. They sold their house without a plan as to where to move. They don't know if they're going to move into a home or a rental, and they're trying to figure out what to do with yard work
Yeah.
tools because they may not have a yard again. What do you suggest?
Yeah, keep them. I mean, you're not always going to know where you're going to move. Right? There's all kinds of different scenarios. Yeah, I wouldn't get rid of something that you may need. That's not the point. It's making decisions on what you can know.
I like that.
Put up the last resource screen again.
And I'll send it out as well.
Yeah.
And I'll send it out tonight because it seems like people are excited for it.
Okay.
Now, is there something that you see a trend in a lot of people, like certain parts other than paper, that people have, a struggle with?
There it is. It's a resource
Oh,
page.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, I put it in that sort of reverse order because I mean you hit it right from the beginning. It's the keepsakes that people struggle with. I don't know if has to do with a trend, because that's always been something people struggle with.
Mhm.
But the main trend I am seeing in downsizing is the online auction and estate sale that I mentioned. One thing about sort of traditional estate sales is they don't always take everything, but a company like Max Sold does. I mean, when I say includes, I'll back up and explain a little further. So they'll sell individual items like a chair, or maybe it's a set of chairs, and then they might sell like a lot of tools. So it'll be like you're paying for this bunch of tools, and they have follows who are not just individual customers but other resellers who buy up this stuff, and they have ways of getting it all sold, which I'm incredibly impressed with. Wow. And really would not want no part of, because it's stressful. But that people like the idea that they don't, you can still live in your home, set up this sale, and the auction goes online for 2 weeks. It's not invasive, and then they just come in one shot, and they know what they're picking up. They have the Max Sold people there orchestrating the sale, so you don't have to be involved. They bring their own transportation. They know they have to come with their own transportation and take it away. Yeah, so I should point out that estate sale companies are using online sales as well. The auction house, you can see all their stuff online, but a company like Max Sold and the Clearinghouse, that's like sort of an integral part of it, is to have that auction conducted online.
It sounds very convenient for
the
buyer and the seller.
Yeah, and especially if you live in a condo situation, there's often limits on what you can do. Like you can't have the dumpster, you can't have a tag sale, even if you wanted to have one. And so it makes sense to have these people sort of coming in and out, and not setting up shop.
Okay, I have a few more questions for you. Someone wanted to know, so their parents need to downsize, but they have
Mhm.
very different approaches to clutter and possessions and inevitably fight whenever they start to look at things. Any suggestions?
Yeah, well, start with that list and say that come in with the understanding that the focus is not going to be on making you get rid of things, but think seriously about the size of the place you're moving into. If it's smaller, that's a big determining factor. What if you're looking for a place that's about half the size, and know that you can only keep half the items, and that you're there to help, not to bully. And you might be completely well-intentioned and not thinking that you are, but the more you tell your parents, get rid of that stuff, the more they're going to dig their heels in. So the more you can talk about, focus on the easier things. Like I said, save the paper and keepsakes towards the end. Focus on like the big pieces of furniture, old technology. It's amazing how many old forms of media get kept over the years. There's the tapes and the cassettes and the DVDs and the reel-to-reels. There are services that can now convert those if it's worth doing. But a lot of the media doesn't have the devices to even play them on anymore. So that sort of helps with the decision. But the way I look at it is that keepsakes are on some level irreplaceable. So focus on the things that are replaceable. Okay, so you throw away that ratty old sofa that you're so attached to. Well, you can get another sofa. And oh, by the way, another great piece of advice, and this is fairly common, I don't know, but I'll share it. If on with keepsake items, be more lenient with the smaller things. It might be a matchbook that doesn't mean much to you, but if it's not taking up much space, don't worry about it. But if it's say it's a like a swing set or something large, so obviously you can't take with you, take a photo and keep it in a scrapbook. It doesn't take much to bring back a memory, and it doesn't have to be the big large item. I know that's sometimes a hard sell, but one argument I do like, or point I like to bring up, is that typically with an item, there's a greater value to the space left behind than to the item itself. Like, for example, a treadmill. A lot of people they say, oh, I spent a lot of money on that thing, or maybe there's an amount of guilt associated with it that I never really used as much as I should have, and maybe I will in my new place. Meanwhile, it's being used to dry laundry. That takes up a lot of space, and it's a burden. And that's a perfect example of, listen, you show an open laundry room with that thing gone, your house is going to sell, and that's a much greater value than the treadmill ever was.
I have a handful of questions for you. Someone wanted to know, is there any value to old books? I inherited some books from the turn of the century and want to get rid of them, but wonder if there's any value before I do so.
Got a great resource, Griffin Books, Dave Greif, Greif of Griffin Books. He's right in Stamford. He knows what books are of value, and he'll come by and assess what you've got, and give you a price right on the spot. And any books that could be donated, he'll I actually I don't know about this lately, but pre-COVID certainly he was taking books to the libraries. I think he still is.
Oh, that's great. Okay, that's a wonderful resource.
Yeah.
Someone wanted to know any advice on putting a value on your possessions, whether junk or valuable. For example, old end tables that may be outdated.
Yeah, Dave Johnson from Greenwich Auction. By the way, he's always the one I refer to when it's values of items. That is not my specialty. It is Dave's. He has this thing he always says about, do you know the difference between a sofa and a husband? You can get rid of your husband. He also makes jokes about things like old sewing machines that have a great value as an anchor. He sees a lot of stuff, but the other guideline is anything that's large and brown, very hard to sell. So yeah, I don't personally have advice on what piece of furniture sell well. Dave will tell you. I'm often surprised not only by the things that don't sell, but by the things that do. So I would recommend him as a resource for that. Seeing a question about old coins. Robert Reimer is local. Reimer is a local resource for that, right in Stamford. I've used him before. Had a client who had a lot of it was pennies made during World War II, I believe made from zinc, that were shockingly of value. She was collecting pennies that far, or a family was collecting pennies that far back. Had some value, I learned from Robert.
Someone wanted to know, their daughter got married.
Corroborated the brown furniture.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, what did you see, Amanda?
Someone said their daughter was married 2 years ago, and the daughter's using her parents' house as her storage unit still. Any advice on how to turn that around?
Yeah. So one of the things I always say to all my clients, not just the downsizing clients, is that you have to prioritize to organize, which may sound overly simplistic, but it's because everybody's got different priorities, and priorities are always changing. There's hundreds of reasons to get organized. So yeah, I would want to find out sort of the story behind that, and what's the priority there? Was the daughter moved into the
daughter got married 2 years ago,
yeah.
But she still has stuff at her parents' house.
Yeah, here's one piece of advice on that is that I get this happens a lot where the parents will say to usually their adults, children, come on over and take what you want. I want to throw this stuff out. Often, usually don't mean it. But who could refuse an invitation like that? Well, everybody. What I recommend is pulling out a few items that you think you'd be really shocked if your son or daughter would let be thrown out, if you would dispose of them, and send a few photos. I'm going to get rid of these. If you don't, do you want these? The more specific you can be about it, the more likely it is to happen. If it's just sort of a general come and take it, it's you're visiting for Thanksgiving. When are you going to go through your room and take us? No, it's not what you want to do. It's not going to happen. But that's a good example of prioritizing prioritize to organize, because you know, it's seeing where things are now, because things that might have been a great value at one point in your life, could be 10 years ago, could be 1 year ago, have completely changed. And are you keeping this stuff for your kids or for you? Because quite often that's the case. It's like, more often than not, I see the kids like, throw it away. I don't want it. I can't believe you're throwing this away. Well, I mean it. And it's like, well, I just have to hang on. The parent says, I have to hang on to it. So, and listen, I'm not gonna say that's wrong. There's a sentimental attachment to it, but get, you know, clear on what the priority is. Who are you saving it for, and why?
Mm-hmm. Someone had an interesting question. She was curious what your thoughts are on why there's so many self-storage buildings being constructed. Why do we seem to have so much stuff?
Yeah. Do you know that CubeSmart has a statistic on the number of storage units? For every McDonald's that you see, there are 3 storage facilities. The need for storage units has just skyrocketed since the turn of the century. And I'm always joking that if I got into another business, it would be putting up the white flag on organizing and say, all right, you're just keeping your stuff, folks. I'm getting in the storage business, because I think it's not going anywhere. But certainly it has to do with a lot of life transitions, which we're seeing a lot of people moving to new jobs, moving to new homes, people downsizing. There's a need for it. Increased divorce rate certainly contributes to it. There's a lot of reasons for it, but I always call, you know, my favorite definition of clutter is postponed decisions. Storage units are a monument to postponed decisions. And it is one of the regular projects we do is help folks with their storage units, at least reduce them, consolidate them. We had one guy, we spent 2 full weeks on decluttering his storage units filled with paper.
Oh, wow.
But my advice on storage units is be mindful when you put things in as much as you can. I know a lot of the times it's sort of a desperate situation. Wherever you can, be sure you have like things together, label it so you know what's there. It makes it a lot easier if there's any hope of going through it again and emptying stuff, to know what's in there. If you have to throw things in a panic, it's going to be something you just want to avoid and keep putting off. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for storage units, and they are once they go in, it's hard for things to come out.
You can see that. Okay, I'm trying to end on a fun note. Let's see. You've got tons of questions. We're not going to be able to get through all of them, but let's see.
Oh, about the pod, yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, there are limitations on, depending on where you live. Yeah, I am not by any means saying everything that everybody can do. I'm just throwing out some options that can work for some places. It's going to be different every location.
Now, do you have any creative solutions on collections, like either to pare down and how to showcase what you do have?
Yeah, well, I guess, but it's pretty simple, which is, if it's important enough to keep, it should be important enough to keep well. Mm-hmm. There's sort of a fine line between collecting and hoarding. I mean, it is quite distinct. I mean, collecting is you're doing purposefully. And it's the more and intentionally, the more intentional you are about it, the more it's a legitimate collection. It has value to you. It's something that you can share with people. It's something you can enjoy. If it's just collecting in piles, then you've sort of lost. I'm sorry. Then you've lost the value of what a collection is and should be. And then, you know, again, you want to get clear on why you're keeping it, because is it to enjoy or is it to eventually sell? And that's when, you know, you have to worry about keeping things in the packages and the condition, like the books. It starts with, again, prioritize to organize.
Like that, prioritize to organize. This has been fantastic. I actually want to just start cleaning my office right now.
It can't, you know what? There's no law that says organizing can't be fun.
Yeah, you're right.
It feels really good, or it can, but it's real important to have a certain momentum with it. And a big part of that is having a place for things to go and being really, you know, clear about it and why. And so that's why I recommend starting with the garage and the storage spaces. Because if you start in the living spaces and you don't have things that sort of pile up and not going anywhere, that's when it gets really frustrating and overwhelming and think, oh, we're not getting anywhere here.
Yeah, I think this is great. So now I know that that's where I'm going to start and end with paper, because I definitely always start with paper and you know, then you just kind of get stuck in a rut.
Yeah. Everything, in fact, the theory, the central philosophy of my book, The Circulation Solution, is circulation prevents accumulation. You want to have a plan for circulation for everything. Plan for movement, a series of manageable, reliable steps. That's the key to staying organized. And paper is no exception. You know, paper needs to circulate in our lives, and you want to know what stage of that circulation you are first, and then it will move.
So I'm going to purchase your book tonight and put that in our library collection. So if anyone's looking for it, you know where to find it. Excellent. And I will be sending out these resources. And this was recorded and will be on the Darien Library YouTube channel in the next probably 48 hours.
Terrific.
Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Everyone have a great night. I hope everyone you know, is motivated and inspired to organize. And, you know, if you run into any roadblocks, I think give Matt a call.
Absolutely. Happy to. Free consultation. Nothing to lose but your clutter.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.